Good morning, everybody, and welcome to day number 3 of the 5-day video series challenge. These are the 4 tools that you need to start launching your practice in just 1 week. Day number 3 is all about one thing and one thing only, and that's increasing your referral scores. So here in just a few minutes, I'm going to give you the exact strategies that you need to get your referrals rising and rising fast. I am Dr. Scott Dorrity, the chiropractic growth coach. All I do is grow chiropractic practices. So after I sold my own highly successful practices, I took the strategies and the systems that I developed and I started coaching other chiropractors and giving them the tools that they need to launch their practices. So during this challenge, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm giving you the exact strategies that I developed that made my own practices launch to over 7 figures. One of the 4 tools to launching a practice is increasing your referral score. And that, my friends, is exactly what I'm laying out for you in today's video. I see Tyler, Braden, Kenneth all joining me. Thanks for stopping by. Let me get all my stuff set up here. So if you haven't registered yet to get access to the replays of the video challenge and the worksheets and the downloads, you definitely need to do that. And it's free, so why wouldn't you? Just head on over to the link. It should be in the comments by now. Wait till after the video. Wait till after you watch today's live video, and then be sure that you register. Then you can download day 1, you can download day 2, and you can download today, day 3's downloadables. They're all there in the membership portal, if you will. So if you're watching this live, wait till after the show. If you're watching this on replay, go ahead and hit pause, run on over there, grab those downloadable worksheets. You'll be glad you did. Thank you for those of you that are joining me here for the live version of day number 3 in this challenge. If you're a new viewer, go ahead and let me know what state you're from. And that goes for you if you're watching on the replay as well. And in fact, if you are watching on the replay, don't just hide there behind your phone or your keyboard. Shoot me a message. Let me know what state you're from. Put hashtag replay in that comment for me to let me know that you're watching on the replay. And also, kind of a little question of the day on the side, I guess. I would love to know from everyone watching how many years you've been practicing as a chiropractor. So just drop that information in the comments down below. As I'm getting ready here to give you the exact strategies that are going to skyrocket your referral scores, but the cost of those strategies is one comment. Just let me know how many years you've been in practice, and again, if you're new, let me know what state you're coming from. All right, see Tim joining us here as well live. Your referral score is arguably one of the most important statistics in your practice. Now, why is that? Because it's a direct reflection of your effectiveness at satisfying and inspiring patients with your care. When you're doing a fabulous job and you're giving the patients a great experience, they will naturally go out and tell everyone they know about you and refer them to you. And the most impressive practices that I've seen across the country have the highest number of referrals. It's kind of, they go hand in hand. But that isn't the only reason why I included this as part of this series. Referral patients are also the best type of patient to have. And here's why. Unlike advertising patients, and again, you've heard me talk. You know how everybody's out there trying to get you Facebook patients, people who don't know you yet, cold traffic to come in and see you. And it's great if you can get them and you can convert them and then you can turn them into referral patients. But unlike those advertising patients, referral patients come into your practice pre-sold on you. I mentioned yesterday during perfect case acceptance that perfect case acceptance means somebody will accept your full case, but then also go out and grab other people, bring them in pre-sold to also accept your full case. And that's exactly what referral patients come in. How they come in pre-sold. They already feel like they know you because the person that referred them to you sang your praises and went on and on about how wonderful you are. Well, that's the goal anyway. And with my system, you'll not only increase your referral scores, but you'll improve the quality of your referrals. Because what I just described, those are the type of patients who are going to make your practice launch. Those are the kind of people who stick around. Those are the kind of people who refer other people. They're not just kicking the tires. They're not advertising patients. They're not, a couple adjustments and gone. When you are filling your practice with 15, 20, 25, I've got clients who are upwards of 40 or more new referral patients per month, pretty soon you're going to be facing some really great new problems. And again, a lot of my clients have heard me say things. They ask me a question like, we're going to do this. And they ask me like, well, what happens when this happens? I'm like, that's a great problem to have. Let's create that problem. Let's, well, we don't have enough parking. Great. Let's overfill the parking lot. Let's create that problem. So here, when you get these referrals set up, you're going to need more space. You're going to need more staff. Maybe you're even going to need a new building to accommodate all of your new patients. Because referral patients, like I said, are the ones who stick around, but those are great problems to have. Let's create those problems. Let's get you to a point where you need all that new stuff in order to serve the number of new patients you have coming in, especially if they are referrals. So my system to increasing referral scores is based on 6 components, my 6 C's. So the first one is going to be cost. We'll get into it here more in a second. Second one is convenience. The third one is control. The fourth one is comfort. Fifth is compassion, and number 6 is competence. Oh, I see Eric joined us. He's been in practice 27 years. Fantastic. So everybody join him and let me know how long you've been in practice. I see Jacqueline join us as well. So those are the 6 C's. This entire system is going to take a little longer than a week to implement. Now, I know you're watching this, the 4 tools to launch in a week. I'm going to give you all the strategies here quickly to get you to that next big jump, but obviously these are things that you have to do over time. And you know, it's funny. I think that's one of the reasons why people go after more new patients through advertising as opposed to taking care of this stuff, because it does take time. It is planting seeds. It is you reap what you sow. So too many people aren't willing to put the effort in to get these referral systems and strategies going. They think new patients are easier. We'll get more new patients through, but they churn and they just have to get more new patients. It becomes an endless cycle and becomes very stressful. I'm going to give you the exact steps that you need to take for each of these components this week, but you're going to have to plant those seeds over a period of time. But when you get those rolling, you'll need a lot less advertising patients. Practice will be a lot less stressful. You're going to be very, very happy about it. Tim, 21 years, very similar to me. That's odd, since we were in school together. All right, let's jump into cost first. And I start with cost and list this as number 1 because it's incredibly common when I work with doctors that just by cleaning up this cost issue, referrals start to flow quickly. The first thing I want you to do, and this is on your worksheet, so go over there and get that in the membership portal, is do a pricing strategy checkup in your practice. Take a good look at whether or not you're charging enough to cover your costs and to have some left over. In my on-site consultations, I typically break up what we can do to improve the amount of money we make per month. And the quickest and easiest thing to do is to fix the cost issue. If you change your cost or you provide a different service today, you get paid today. Obviously, insurance might take a little longer, but you get my point. Those are easy fixes. Again, referrals are planting seeds and reap what you sow later. But when we're talking about cost, it can happen really fast. It can change your practice really fast. So if you're struggling and you don't have enough left over, look at cost first. Now, I know most of you probably want to provide care at an affordable rate, but you have to be sure that your pricing strategy is set up correctly. And on the flip side of that, you also have to ensure that you aren't overpricing. This one kills referrals and practices often because it's one area that you'll rarely have patients complain to you about. They don't want to admit that they can't afford your services, so they just don't come back. What you need to ask yourself is, am I happy with the number of patients that I have at the prices that I'm charging? And if that answer is no, I want you to take a good hard look at your pricing strategy. And as you do, keep the following in mind. And again, these are on your worksheet for today. Be fiercely competitive with easily compared services. Now, when I say easily compared services, what I'm talking about mostly is adjustments and the price of the first day. Those are the things that people are shopping for, and you want to be fiercely competitive in those categories. Don't attempt to challenge the comparable fees of other doctors in your neighborhood in these categories. I shouldn't say don't. You have to be a master at providing value, at showing value, at developing value of your care before you can do that. And so you can challenge those comparable fees, but only after you get value nailed. So if you find that you need to raise your fees, here's my rule. Do not, under any circumstances, send out a letter to patients to tell them that you're raising your fees, okay? Tell them in your office. At least a week, preferably a month before that change takes effect. Sit down with everybody one-on-one. I know you think that takes a lot of time, but it's worth it to not lose people. Just had a conversation yesterday with a doctor who had a policy, which I'm not against the policy, but it was just a missed appointment policy. But they were telling people over the phone when they called in as a new patient. And we discussed that. We're like, that's just an obstacle. It's a cost that patient doesn't want to deal with. And it had been cutting off in our estimation, about 2 new patients per week. Now, this doctor was busy, so he wasn't missing those 2 new patients per week. But as we're improving his practice, we want those 2 new patients. But it's something we're handling over the phone, and people are basically like, well, I'm not going to pay it, and they left. Same thing goes here with this letter. Someone reads a letter at home that the prices are going up, it's in the garbage, they're never coming back. Not everybody, but enough people. Deal with it personally, deal with it with rapport, deal with it face-to-face. Another rule when it comes to cost is do not nickel and dime patients with small charges like small exams. Put it all into one package. And whenever possible, don't charge for exams at all if you can. You know, a lot of people, when I go into a practice and they're not doing re-exams, I tell them to do it for a patient management thing. They're like, oh, and we can bill for it too. And I'm like, yeah, you can, but I'd rather you didn't. We don't want to nickel and dime the patient with these small exam fees. Those aren't so much for the billing as so much as they are for patient management, for having an opportunity to talk to them. So just don't nickel and dime them. You can build it into the rest of your practice if you need to, but don't charge only for an exam. Nobody wants to pay to find out what's wrong with them. They only want to pay to have it fixed. So those are my cost rules. Make sure that your cost is in play. Now, I shouldn't say those are my cost rules. Those are looking at a day-by-day visit, but a lot of you batch your care together. So you give a case fee, and that's fine as well, but you also have to make sure that that's under a certain amount depending on your demographic. Too many times I see referrals get crushed by the patient who loves you, who signed up for your full care plan, but they go out and have lunch with a friend, and they say, you have to go see my chiropractor. He's the best, or she's the best. And the patient's like, oh, okay, I will. How much does it cost? And they say $4,000. And that referral is shot. So we've got to get that into a respectable range. We've got to get people focused on a smaller number if they're going to go out and refer that thing. That doesn't mean over the course of their year or life they might not do that, but the packages need to be in a respectable range, whatever that means for your area. All right. I see Taryn joining us as well. Michael joining us. Thanks for stopping by. Michael, I don't know if I've seen your name before, so let me know what state you're from and let me know how many years you've been in practice. Let's move on to convenience. Convenience comes down to one thing, and one thing only. It's appointment times. And it sounds simple, right? Maybe it's too simple. But to the patient, that's honestly the biggest issue with convenience. And this one might take you a while to work on, but it boils down to this. Do whatever you can to offer endless peak time availability. Just pausing for effect. Endless peak time availability. You've got to expand yourself to be able to see patients when patients want to be there. Patients don't want to come in during those other times for the most part. Again, you've heard me say it. Nobody wants to go to a restaurant at 3:30 in the afternoon. It doesn't matter how many coupons you put out, what kind of specials you do. People want to come at lunch and they want to come at dinner. Same thing comes for you. They want to come after work. They want to come over their lunch hour. They want to come before work. Now, many people are going to take off work for you. So you've got to find ways to have endless peak time availability. Figure out what you need to do to make that happen. Then follow this model. Schedule the patient for the first visit or two. Now, before I even get into this, I'm going to soften this because, again, I work with a different range of clients, a different range of chiropractors. A lot of you have really, really tight schedules. You know, you schedule a patient every so often. If you really want to grow and launch your practice and get more referrals, you've got to find a way to be a little bit more flexible, not so rigid. So my recommendation, and what I think would be the end goal for most practices that want to get big, is to schedule the patient for the first visit or two. Then as soon as your receptionist or staff, I shouldn't say first active care plan, maybe to the first re-exam. And then as soon as your receptionist or your staff person starts to sense some resistance with scheduling on the patient's part, have them tell the patient that they'll schedule them, but that patient should feel free to drop in whenever they're available. Or if their scheduled time doesn't work for them, to be half an hour early or half an hour late is okay. Sounds like a pain in the butt, doesn't it? But trust me, it's worth it. When a patient can drop into your office unannounced and get a fairly quick turnaround, be seen and out of there quickly, conveniently, and they do that twice, they're a patient for life. That's the convenience model. That should be the goal. Can all of you do that? No. I want you to get as close to that as you possibly can. So if you have a really tight schedule, start trying to find ways to be more flexible. Let's move on to control. Control boils down to this. Does the patient feel like they have too much or too little control when it comes to your treatment presentation? So again, yesterday we talked about perfect case acceptance. And we talked about what it takes to get that. Today we're looking at referrals. So how much control do they have? Do they feel pressured? If you're too strong in the case presentation, you give the patient a negative feeling. and they leave complaining. They might buy your care, but they leave and maybe come back for one or two adjustments, and they have this negative impression that's just sitting back there. They're not going to tell you about it. That's if you're too strong. If you're too weak, you're not communicating that value that I mentioned earlier, and the patient won't buy the care you're recommending. They'll automatically take less care just naturally because you're kind of weak in your presentation. So the 4 steps that you need to master this component are, number 1, to communicate severity. And hopefully you watched yesterday's show. So we're talking about perfect case acceptance. And I spent a lot of time on the preempts and the pre-negotiation part of it. With the diagnostic presentation and the closes, that's what we're dealing with right here. It's in the referral strategy component, but it also ties in with your case presentation. So when you're trying to give a patient control to make those decisions for themselves, we still go back to perfect case acceptance. We tell the patient exactly what they need, and then we cheerfully give them exactly what they want. But in order to create value, there's 4 things we want to look at. Number 1, communicate severity. Be sure that the patient understands when you're explaining it how severe their problem is. Don't lie to them. Don't make stuff, sorry, got flies here. Don't make stuff up. Don't oversell the case. And obviously in the back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of coaches were recommending that. Be honest about the severity of the case, but tell them how severe. Too many doctors pull back and don't use that. Number 2, use tie-ins. And that just means ask the patient how their problem is affecting their life. Is it keeping them from doing their favorite activity? Is it keeping them from playing with their kids, with their grandkids? You get the point there. I'm sure you've heard it before. But use those tie-ins. Number 3, communicate urgency to the patient. And again, don't lie, but be sure that they understand what could happen if their issue isn't promptly treated. What's going to happen if this problem returns and they're on vacation? What's going to happen, to work if this continues to get worse? And finally, number 4, your perspective. And I think this is one of the key points here. The patient wants to know what you would do in their situation. So tell them. So as you're going through into your recommendations, or what we would consider the diagnostic presentation or the first close from the perfect case acceptance, say, if I were you, if I were in your shoes, if this was my spine, here's what I would do. Here's how I would handle this. They want that perspective of yours, of how you would deal with it. And that's going to help you communicate that value. All right, so those first 3 that we just talked about, cost, convenience, and control, are what I consider the defensive categories of referral mastery. They have to be in place. Those are 3 things people expect. You're playing defense there. The next 3 are what I consider the offensive categories of referral mastery. This is a place where you really get the chance to shine. This is a place where you get to completely impress them with your service, which leads to even more referrals. This is where your referrals go through the roof. So the 4th component is comfort. Comfort is your chance to give patients a stellar experience. If you want them to run out the door and tell everyone about you, you have to get your comfort factor nailed. So speak with your staff, especially the ones that the patients see first as soon as they walk in the door, and be sure that they understand the importance of being friendly and warm with patients the moment those patients walk in the door. It's even better if you can watch your staff interact with patients without them being aware of you watching. See if they smile. See if they speak warmly. Or see if they seem distracted or irritated. Do a checkup to make sure that you have everything ready for the patient, or at least that the staff does when that patient walks in the door, especially new patients. Also, have your staff assist new patients with the paperwork. And I know a lot of you think, well, I'm understaffed, I can't do that. Well, that's a problem. Be overstaffed. Have somebody on, we're going to talk a little bit more about team tomorrow, but have somebody on the team dedicated to this, or in the bullpen, as I always talk about, so they can actually help the patient with that staff and give them that comfort factor that patients are looking for. And it's ideal if you have a dedicated spot in the office where a staff member can take a new patient in order to do this. Oh, I see Chris joining us. Thanks for joining in live here, Chris. You can let me know how long you've been in practice as well. Let's get on to the last 2 C's. The last 2 are compassion and competence. And these 2 can be summed up pretty quickly. You have to be sure that the patient perceives that their care is both yours and your staff's number 1 priority. Not your bottom line, not your vacation that you're about to take, not that it's almost lunchtime. This is how you show compassion. You've got to be 100% focused and intent when you're with that patient. Now, yesterday I was on a call with a client who I just worked with live in person, and we shortened his treatment time. Excuse me, I misspoke. We did not shorten his treatment time. We kept his treatment time exactly the same. We shortened his visit time. We removed everything from the visit that wasn't treatment. So we actually shortened the time a patient was with him, but his treatment is exactly the same. I didn't want to rush his treatment. I just removed everything that didn't belong. And in so doing, we've created more space for him, and the practice is about to explode. But in a call with him yesterday, and that was just a week and a half ago. So here we are a week and a half later, and he tells me that he's afraid that the patients are going to think he's rushing them, and that the patients are going to feel like their time was shortened. And I clearly explained to him that that's not going to happen. It might happen once, but it's not going to happen. And because I've seen him practice, and I know his compassion, and I know that those few minutes he's in a room with a patient, he is 100% focused on that patient. He cares about that visit. He cares about what they're going to do afterwards. He cares about their treatment plan. And he's not thinking about something else. He's not checking his phone. He's not looking at his Apple Watch. He is there. And that compassion will go a long way towards referrals. It's also going to go a long way for him to shorten that visit time without anybody even noticing it. That's a case where I've done surveys in my own practices as well as in consulting where, I know who's compassionate or not. I watch enough people. But I've done surveys where I've asked the patient when they've left the room, how long do you think you were with the doctor? And I've seen in compassion cases and in non-compassion cases that if you're compassionate and you're focused and you're intent and you spend, let's say, 5 minutes with that patient, when they leave, on average, they're going to say 7.5 to 8 minutes. If you're not compassionate, you're not focused, and you spend 10 minutes with that patient, and I ask them, they're still going to say 7.5 to 8 minutes. So it's not about the time. They're not looking at their watches either. It's about your intent and your focus. That's what's going to get you referrals as well. And the sixth one is competence, and that refers to how well you interact with your patients. We talked a lot about that yesterday in perfect case acceptance. Again, there's some stuff in your worksheet for it, but what you need to do here is ask your staff to honestly give you their feedback. You might be surprised at what you learn. And we actually have a report card, little inside baseball for you. We're going to be talking about team yesterday. I'll get to team tomorrow. I'll get to that here in a second. But we have a report card that will help that will help your staff to grade you. And that's going to be part of tomorrow's show. So make sure you go see that tomorrow. There you have it. Take your worksheet for today. Spend part of your day today and even the following few days. Focus on implementing these concepts and doing a checkup of how you're doing with them. List out some priorities, some things you need to fix fast, maybe some of your lower scores. So if you're high in 4 of these areas and 2 of them are low, focus to get those other 2 up to this area, up to the other 4 areas. Get all 6 of them. My goodness, this fly really loves me. Get all 6 of these as high as you possibly can and see your referrals roll in. I promise you, if you master these, the referrals will come rolling in. Your practice is going to explode with new referral patients. You'll need less advertising patients, which would be a really nice thing. And those referral patients are the ones that are truly going to launch your practice. So, several of the things that I mentioned today refer to your staff or your team. And your staff is equally important when it comes to launching your practice. They need to be on board with this. They need to be tuned in to what you're trying to accomplish. And that's why day number 4 in this video series challenge is all about your team and how they play a role in launching. So be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Find out how to get your team on board with launching and the exact strategy that you need to implement to do that.